Welcome to the Peep Podcast. I'm your host, Nicolle Morock, and on this episode, we're doing something a little different. Audience participation is required to really get the most out of this one, and I think you're going to have fun with it. Before we get started, though, I want to take care of a little housekeeping. You might have noticed that this episode published a week early. Normally, I publish bi-weekly, and episode 16 came out just last week. Well, the reason for that is next week I'm completely unplugging from the digital world, and it's a vacation from all things online that's been planned for months. Rather than wait an extra week to put out the next episode, or schedule this one to post when I won't be around to answer any questions that might arise, I've decided to release it a week early. Of course, sticking to my original schedule, the next episode will still be released on June 9th. So there will still be 2 dark weeks in a row. But given the nature of this one, I think we'll need that extra week to gather data. Without further ado, I'll tell you why I'm so excited about this topic that I decided to publish this one a week early. We are doing science. Electronic voice phenomena, or EVP, are sounds found on electronic recordings, like voices, for example, that were not heard in real time as the recordings were made. Typically interpreted as the voices of spirits, guides, or other non-physical entities, they are often prized by paranormal investigators. As of this recording, we don't actually know how it works, and I'll be the first to admit that some EVP are pretty weak and may be the result of misinterpreted sounds such as stomach growls, noisy air ducts, or even animals that the investigators just didn't make note of while recording. That's why when my team, the National Society of Paranormal Investigation and Research, INSPIRE for short, does an investigation, we have certain rules we follow. Rule number 1, no whispering. Whispering can be misconstrued upon playback, especially if you don't review your audio until days or even weeks later. Rule number 2, announce every sound. Stomach growls? Own it. Creaky floorboard as you shift your weight. Mark it. Homeowner's dog snoring in the other room? Name it. No matter how embarrassing it might be, announce it. Otherwise, you won't really know what's anomalous when you sit down to listen to your audio later. Rule number 3. If you find something anomalous during your audio review and send the clip to the rest of the team, do not say what you think it is until after everyone has had a chance to listen and form their own opinion. And this is going to be the most important rule of this episode. Here's why. The minute you tell someone what you think you hear, they are more likely to hear the same thing or something very close to it. You've tainted their interpretation. You're ruining the experience, and in our case, the experiment. Yes, on this episode, we're doing our own Science plus Sci research. It's an interactive episode that requires your ability, if you choose to participate in the experiment, to fill out a Google form. There's no email address required. Participation is anonymous, and we are working on a trust system here. I'm trusting you to follow the rules, and I'm also asking you to share this episode and the form link, which is in the show notes, so we can get as many people as possible to participate. The more responses we have, the more data I'll have to comb through and see if there is a consensus on what is heard on each of the recordings I'm going to play for you. Here's how it works. I have 7 EVP captures, short recordings, that I will play for you, and without discussing them, you will enter what you think you hear in each one on the form. When you're done, you can submit the form, and I'll go through the form submissions to see if we can come to a consensus on each one. The beauty of doing this via podcast is you can use the rewind button to listen to each one as many times as you need to. But to help you out, I'm going to play each recording 3 times in a row. The forum will open for responses as soon as this episode is released, and it will close on Wednesday, June 24th, 2021. If you happen to be listening to this episode after the forum closes, you can still write down what you think you hear and then listen to the follow-up episode to see if your interpretations match those of others. Hopefully, you're not future man or future woman listening to episodes in backwards order because that might spoil the fun for you. Depending on how many responses we get, the results of this little experiment may be published beyond this podcast, and that's where the trust really comes in. I'm trusting you to only fill out the form one time, to not discuss your interpretations with anyone until after June 24th, and to share the episode and form link. I need your help on this to uphold the integrity of the experiment. It's really important. The beauty of this is also that anyone who has access to a podcast app and the internet can do it. Heck, you could even listen to this episode on my website's embedded player at peeppodcast.com, so you don't really need a podcast app. Plus, I want all types of people to participate, believers, skeptics, and somewhere in between. If you don't really hear anything or you just can't make out the words, you can answer unknown. And if you do hear words, put down exactly what you hear, even if it's a few solid words and then the word unknown after them, in a case where you just couldn't make out that last part. It's all acceptable as long as you're giving it your honest best try. After the response form closes on June 24th, I'll go through the responses and aggregate the results. The more data we have, the longer that might take, but I'm okay with that. Bring it on. Once I've done that, I'll put together a results episode and not only report what I found, but also replay the EVP clips with their backstory and context. For this episode, I'm leaving that part out because, again, it could taint your perception. The only clue I'll give you today is where in each clip the anomalous sound is. One last point I need to make about listening to these EVPs. The quality of your speakers, headphones, or earbuds will make a difference. These were captured on a $40 digital voice recorder with just its built-in microphone, so don't expect studio quality sound. If you can't hear them on one set of speakers, you might want to try another. Personally, I can hear them fine on my desktop computer speakers and my noise-canceling Sony headphones. But I can't guarantee your smartphone speaker will produce the same sound. So are you ready? Here we go. For this first clip, I'm asking you to type what you hear after you hear me say before I joined.
Another story about this room is we got an EVP for one of the first times here. It was before I joined. And the EVP doesn't make sense to the conversation, but it sounds like somebody's saying. Another story about this room is we got an EVP for one of the first times here. It was before I joined. And the EVP doesn't make sense to the conversation, but it sounds like somebody's saying. Another story about this room is we got an EVP for one of the first times here. It was before I joined. And the EVP doesn't make sense to the conversation, but it sounds like somebody's saying.
For this second clip, you're going to type what you hear after George says, "That's interesting."
And around the window and nothing's moving. That's interesting.
I'm going to walk over to the door and just see if I feel a draft around the door, since we know there's holes around this door.
See, I would think if it were coming through the fireplace or something like that, it would affect the whole room.
And around the window and nothing's moving. That's interesting.
I'm going to walk over to the door and just see if I feel a draft around the door, since we know there's holes around this door.
See, I would think if it were coming through the fireplace or something like that, it would affect the whole room.
And around the window and nothing's moving. That's interesting.
I'm going to walk over to the door and just see if I feel a draft around the door, since we know there's holes around this door.
See, I would think if it were coming through the fireplace or something like that, it would affect the whole room.
Remember, if you don't hear anything or you can't make out words, type unknown. In the third clip, what do you hear after knock 3 times?
Yeah, that's hard. Knock 3 times. Yeah, that's hard. Knock 3 times. Yeah, that's hard. Knock 3 times.
In the fourth clip, what do you hear after I ask, why that time?
Why that time? Why that time? Why that time?
In the fifth clip, what do you hear after, is there someone else in the study who's going to converse with us?
Or is there someone else in the study who is going to converse with us?
Yes.
Yes. Or is there someone else in the study who is going to converse with us?
Yes.
Yes. Or is there someone else in the study who is going to converse with us?
Yes.
Yes.
In the sixth clip, what do you hear after EVP session number 1?
EVP session number 1.
Folder D.
EVP session number 1.
Folder D.
EVP session number 1.
Folder D.
And finally, in the seventh clip, what do you hear after, please come in?
Are you outside the door? Please come in. So, all right, prickly around my hand. Are you outside the door? Please come in. So, all right, prickly around my hand. Are you outside the door? Please come in. So, all right, prickly around my hand.
At the end of the form, there is an optional question asking if you heard any other EVPs or noises which you believe require further investigation. If you did, please tell me which clip and what you think you heard. And that's it. Thank you for participating. Because it's so important, I'll say it one more time. Please share this experiment, but don't tell anyone what you think you heard until after June 24th. And if you have someone who'd like to listen after that day, don't spoil their fun. Let them be surprised and then discuss it all you want. I promise the surprise is half the fun of capturing these EVP to begin with. I mean, imagine listening to hours of audio and suddenly hearing something that wasn't there when you were in the act of recording. It's thrilling, to say the least. Thanks as always for listening, and thanks in advance for spreading the word about this episode. If you have an idea for a show topic, you can fill out the contact form at peeppodcast.com. That's PEEP podcast.com. Remember, that stands for People Experiencing Everyday Paranormal. If I can find a study about it, I'll be happy to use it. Also, if you're interested in sharing your own personal stories of paranormal experiences, I'd love to have you on the show. It can be as anonymous as you'd like. You can keep up with the show on its Facebook page, facebook.com/peeppodcast. We also have a growing group linked from that page in case you're interested in joining the conversation over there. After June 24th, we can even start a thread about this episode and discuss it to our heart's content. If you like the podcast, please give it some rating love on your favorite podcast app. Share it with friends and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Doing so will help the podcast be found by others. If you're interested in supporting the show financially, I've set up a Patreon page at patreon.com/Nicolle Morock. Patrons will receive special thanks and some para-nerd perks. You can also look for the Peep Podcast shop at tpublic.com for t-shirts and other merchandise. Those links are also in the show notes. I say it every week because I mean it. No matter how you support the show, listening, telling others about it, Patreon, or sporting a tee, I truly appreciate you being here. Thanks again for listening. Stay safe and be well.